Okay, so as always, I would like to welcome you all to the, let's see, let me put this on. There we go. I would like to welcome you all to the San Diego Fine Woodworkers Association CNC SIG for the month of September 2020. And we have a few things we want to talk about today. I think it'll be a good meeting. Hopefully you'll enjoy it as much as I will. I want to check on a couple of people here. We have Rob. Are you there, Rob? Rob?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. That's good. Thanks. Oops, and I just did this, so let's do that. Okay. Sometimes, how do I get this back? There we go. Okay. And then also I want to check, let's see, is Howard here at all? Howard's not here, is he? Okay, no. Doug, you're here, right? Doug LaRue?
Yep.
And is Rex here? Okay, I don't see Rex. How about Ian? Okay. The reason I asked those names was because some of these people have, I know, have been doing some things with trying to add lasers to CNCs. And so I wanted to just encourage any of you who have any experience in that to jump right in on today's topic. Also, a little bit later in the meeting, we're going to have some discussion from Rob Sandstrom, who has been volunteering with the San Diego Police Department and what's the name of the wood people in National City? Recycle?
Lumbercycle.
Yeah, Lumbercycle. And what they've been doing is they've been working on a wooden CNC carved, 3D carved badge, big sign that they wanted to reproduce. And so I'm eager to see how, I know he's been making progress on that, and I'm eager to hear more about that and see more about that. But the first topic that I wanted to get into real quickly is just about this idea of adding a laser to a CNC. And the concept here would be, some of us had gotten the little lasers, the Ortur lasers, which have very small, maybe 4 by 5 inch working space. And then we've got these CNC machines. In my case, mine is like 16 inches by 32 inches. And so, it seemed like a natural progression to be able to add a laser to the CNC to be able to use all of that bed space and, engrave larger things. Plus, combining operations to be able to carve something with CNC and then etch an engraving on it at the same time. And combining the two realms into one seemed like it made sense. So before I show what I've been working on here, I just wonder how many of you have either have added a laser to your CNC, or you're thinking about doing it sometime in the future, or you tried to do it and failed, or whatever your experience is. How many of you fall into that category? Don't forget to unmute yourself if you're going to speak.
There's this one irony, I guess, that I'm thinking about, which is Lou, for instance, who just raised his hand, basically is in a situation where if you really want laser badly enough, you'll get one, right? And so it's like, there's one tier, which is the auteur, and there's the CNC with a laser, and then there's a get a laser. So I guess there's a chunk of us who've just gone ahead and gotten the laser. Not that there's a lot of real estate in my work area here, but it was at least a priority at the time. So that's like, I would put myself in the category of someone who would seriously have considered it if I hadn't already purchased one. Yeah.
Right. And so that's another one of my motivation factors there. When I got the CNC, I had already decided before that not to get any more equipment for my shop here because of space limitations. But, I finally capitulated and got the CNC, in part because at that time the member shop was closed, so I couldn't go there and use that one. And so then I can, if I can add a decent sized laser without taking any more space, and that seems to make sense.
So did you in advance, when you purchased the CNC, have in mind the idea of adding the laser, or was that a additional feature you could bring into your workshop without having to assign any more floor space to it.
Yeah, no, I didn't have it initially in mind, but you know, it seemed to make sense. Seeing a few things like, I believe isn't it Howard that is that had attached an opt laser to his setup, and so seeing a few things like that got me thinking about you know, that it is doable. I had thought at one point of trying to figure out how to add the Auteur laser right to this machine. But then I wasn't having the greatest success with the Auteur laser. I haven't stuck with it nearly as well as a lot of you have. So that's not a knock on Auteur. That's just, I got discouraged and kind of let it
You know,
go.
what's interesting, Ed, is that while diode laser, when you compare it to what a CO2 laser can do, comes out relatively weak. If it's partnered with a CNC, you don't need the laser to do cutting. You need the laser to do a great job of etching.
Right.
So it's not as though you really give up on anything if you add a diode laser to a CNC, because while you can't cut anything of consequence, you've got end mills and a spindle, you know? So that's another thing that I had to sort of come around to. When we look at just the Auteur, really all we can do is etch, and you give up cutting. But if you add a diode laser to a CNC, then you don't give up cutting because the cutting capability was already there. You know, it makes increasing sense to me as I've watched different people get them and seen how they use them, and they don't come away feeling like they gave up the cutting capability or they missed the power, because it's all about etching, and the opt laser seems to do a great job of that.
Agreed. Thank you, Travis. Now, yeah, one qualification, I mentioned this to you the other day too. One qualification on that is that let's see, messing with the picture here. One qualification to that is that if you are cutting a thin piece of material and you need to get that, you know, like if you're doing Christmas ornaments where the pieces fit together or something, you need a nice square cut, there may still be a reason for cutting with the diode laser on the CNC.
Radius of the end.
I do plan to do some of that. So let me go ahead and just really quickly show what it is I've done to this point. And by the way, I don't have it completely working, and I'll be glad to talk about that and to answer any questions. And Doug, if you want to join in, or anybody else who wants to comment, just make sure you unmute yourself. And if I don't hear you right away, just keep at me, and we'll get you in here. So I'm going to switch the spotlight to the camera that I have attached here. And now you can see my my Shapeoko. It's a Shapeoko XL, so I've got 16 by 32 space to work on. And you see over here on the left-hand side a little add-on that wasn't there on the original thing. And this little cover comes off, and it exposes the contacts there. And then this bracket is attached where the screws go in to hold the spindle motor, okay? And then here is the laser module, and that has contacts in the back and rare earth magnets, and it just goes on like that. So when you want to use the laser is real easy to attach, and when you don't want to use the laser, you can cover it with that little cover, and you'll protect the contacts and everything and keep the dust out. The wire that runs the laser head goes back through beside the spindle motor and back into the drag chain back there. And then it comes out this side over here. And what I'll need to do is I still need to wire it to the controller board over there on the Shapeoko. And that's where I'm having some problems right now in getting the proper pin out for PWM, which is power wave modulation signal. Now, also over here on this side, I have the little control panel for the laser with a key, and that is where you turn the laser itself on and off. Now, then of course the entire setup is controlled by the connection to the Shapeoko and the computer. You just run light burn instead of running carbide motion or something like that, and you're able to then output to the laser. Now, I have gotten as far as having Lightburn recognize the laser, and I have gotten Lightburn to read the parameters like the dimensions of the workspace and things like that. And it looks like it's actually reading for a Shapeoko XXL. So I'll have to edit some of the values for that. But I have not figured out, because the board that the laser I've got, by the way, is it's called an Opt laser, OPT. Opt laser comes from a company out of Poland. And while I think they did a really good job implementing really quality machining here and a quality piece of equipment, the board that they had designed it for in working with Shapeoko was a prior board. And I bought my Shapeoko several months ago, and I've got one that's called 2.4E, and it doesn't look anything like what they had in the illustration. And the place where they had intended for you to pick up the PWM isn't there. So I found some plated holes on my board that say ground and PWM, and right now I'm waiting for some solderless push pins to come in that I can push into those holes, and then hopefully I'll be able to hook up to it and get things working.
Hey, Ed?
Yes.
I don't know that this would be helpful or not, but we did upgrade the boards of the machines in the shop, and we do have older version of the controller board. So I don't know if comparing the two or testing with the board that we have, or I'm just letting you know that it's there, and if it could be of use to you, then you might want to fiddle with it, because it sounds to me like you're in a situation similar to the one that Howard was in, which is this Polish company is doing a great product, but they haven't actually set it up to run on the 50 most popular CNCs. And so consequently, when somebody is an early adopter, such as you are right now, then there's a learning curve. And frankly, you're figuring it out for them in part. I believe you're even actually writing the documentation for them. So if that board that we have in the shop would be of use to you, I can't really see us putting it back into use. And so consequently, if it helps you advance your project, go ahead and grab it. It's just in the drawers there underneath the XXL.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate that. That's a great offer. The only, the thing that would limit me on that, I think, is that I also have both a bit setter and a bit runner hooked up to this board. And so I would be giving up some capabilities. In fact, I could unplug the bit runner, and I know there's a PWM signal on that connector. I could connect there, but that connector is not designed for plugging and unplugging a lot. It's just kind of pressed into the board itself. So it wouldn't be a good idea to be constantly doing that. So hopefully those new pins will come. It's in the post office, and if I've been hearing a lot about postal mail being delayed, so hopefully it won't take too long to get here from Nevada. And then I'll be able to finish testing this and hopefully get it working. And I can let everybody know on the CNC forum at the San Diego Fine Woodworkers forum that I've got it working. And then, I'll be able to start using it from there.
I'd like to make a prediction. I'd like to make a prediction that as soon as you get it working, Dan will be buying one and installing it.
No, he'll make one out of toothpicks and some, he'll find a way to make one.
Well, he's got an XXL, and I can see this really probably tempting him big time.
Oh yeah. Well, I think it's a great solution, and hopefully it'll work out well. Any questions from anybody before we move on? Is anybody else now inspired to do this, or did anybody say they're not going to do it because it's not working seamlessly for me?
I do have one question. Would you expect a diode laser would be able to cut the Oracal film?
I don't know anything about Oracal film. Does anybody here know?
Well, if Oracal film is a vinyl, and I use it, but I don't know what its chemical breakdown is, then when you laser cut vinyl, you create chlorine gas, and that's not a good idea. But again, I don't know what the chemical compound that makes up Oracal is. Typically, we say we don't cut vinyl sheets the way you'd use it in a vinyl cutter because of that. We don't cut PVC either because of that.
You could do that with a drag blade in your router, couldn't you?
Yep, that would be a beautiful solution. It's just like a vinyl cutter in that instance. I had a question, which is to do with the fact that you showed us where you mounted the opt laser controller, and right next to it was the bit runner. And most people probably don't know about the bit runner. Could you spend a minute just telling us what the bit runner does?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So let's see. Let's go back to here. So over here is the bit runner, and the bit runner has coming out of the back here. It has an AC plug that you plug your spindle into, and then it has a cord that goes to plug into your power, into your outlet. On top, there's this 3-position switch that has on, off, and auto. And what you do is, if you set it to auto, then what happens when you're using the CNC, after you've changed the tool out and after it goes to the bit setter and measures to make sure that it's got the tool at the right height, then it will spin up the spindle automatically. You just leave the switch on your router or whatever kind of spindle you have, just leave that on, and then the bit runner will turn that on and off as it needs it. And theoretically, you then don't have to worry about the thing running when you don't want it to be running.
So you have the XL, and on top of that, you added the bit setter for automatic Z zeroing. You added the bit runner for spindle control. You've added the opt laser to add a laser onto it. And I can't tell, but your stepper motor on the top of your Z looks pretty big. Do you have the Z plus head, or do you have?
Yeah, that's the Z plus head, and that came with it when I bought the Shapeoko kit.
Okay.
They offered that as an option, and I think I heard somebody say that now when you order a Shapeoko,
it's the
comes
default
by default with the Z plus.
Yeah, and so that everybody knows, we actually have received 2 at the shop, and we'll be swapping out our older belt-driven Z head for 2 of these Z plus. The amount of Z travel increases, the rigidity of Z goes up quite a bit, and the precision of your cutting is better. You can actually drive things faster because the whole setup is more rigid. And so if he hadn't added that, I was gonna just comment that he's taken his default XL and he's upgraded it just about every which way you can. And I look at mine, and the current one that I have is just a regular old Shapeoko with the old belt head. And I look in a little bit with envy at what he's set up there. You can certainly take the Shapeoko to a whole nother level by making those changes to it.
Yeah, and I think what has happened here is you've probably done more useful things on yours than I have on mine. So
it's a matter of my having had one since 2013 versus you having gotten one just recently. So that's the only difference.
So I've made a few things, but I still have a ways to go. Any other questions on that before we move on to Rob's presentation here? Because I'm kind of eager to see what he has to show too.
Now, what's gonna I could talk with you later on troubleshooting or how to connect your stuff. Maybe I can help you with that. The thing I was going to say, I think your bit setter thing obfuscates that, but I was going to say that the best place to connect your laser would be to the output that controls your spindle.
Right.
But it sounds like you're already using that to your spindle controller, right?
Yeah, the bit runner.
Yeah. Wondering if you still can't use that in parallel, because you're really not going to be using that spindle at all when you're using your laser. So
Well, I
still,
wondered about that. You know, in other words, kind of make a connector and split off the wires and get two signals out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because you basically,
If my push pins don't work, then I think that'll probably be my next thing that I try.
yeah, cool. Yeah, we just have to make sure that the voltage level of the control is appropriate for the laser. 5 volts usually, but
Yes, 5 volts is what they're looking for.
okay, cool.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah. Do you have like an auto dust collection system start up when you're running your CNC,
Ah,
or you just have a
No,
separate
I
switch?
do not. I have a remote control for my for my dust collection system, and so when I'm
Okay.
running the laser, or when I'm running anything on the CNC, I just hit the button and starts up the dust collection. However, one could come off the bit runner with theoretically, you know, some sort of an extension cord and plug both things into it.
that's a cool idea.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about maybe a shop modification, one of the honeydews. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
Do you think Rob left?
Rob, are you here?
He ran away.
Let me see. Oh, I still see him here. Rob, are you there?
It looks like he's talking, but his mic doesn't appear to be working.
Oh, I do see him there. Yeah. Okay.
You know, it seems like these controls from one zoom in to another move around.
Oh, a little bit.
Oh,
Try it again, Rob.
Got a hint of audio.
There
Can
you
you hear
go.
me?
there we go.
All right. I don't know. Maybe I got out of range with my AirPods, although they got long range. Can you hear me
Okay.
now?
Yes, we
Yes.
can hear you. Welcome. We're looking
All right.
forward to this.
Well, like I said, I was trying to multitask. I'm trying to work on that banner at the same time. So since I was listening, I ran over real quick to put some more screws in my CNC over there. There you see it.
Yep.
All right. So basically, what they asked me to share, what Ed thought people might be interested in, was my efforts at trying to get police badges. So let me give you just a little story. I've never done any modeling or anything, 3D modeling, and I haven't really done any bit tracing. I've watched videos on it, on how you bring something in and trace it and so forth. And so that's where I started, because I started out with Mike. Can you guys see this badge when I put it up here?
I'm not.
Am I sharing?
No, you got to share screen. There's a.
Ed, you need to turn it on first in the security button at the bottom of your screen.
Okay.
Let me
Participants
try.
to share
Let me try again. I'm not used to having one screen up since I'm in my garage. I don't have all my multi-screens. So
I know.
Rob, let me just check with Ed. Ed,
Yes.
at the bottom of your screen, there's a security button.
Yes, I have turned on.
I haven't tried. I haven't actually hit it yet. So it's not
Oh,
Ed's
okay.
fault,
Okay.
maybe.
Okay, great.
I'm
Great,
trying
thank
to get there. All right, here we go.
Can I get a recording of you saying it's not Ed's fault, maybe?
Yeah.
Use that with my mic.
Well, can you see it now?
Oh, there we go. That's excellent.
If you can see it now, then it's not Ed's fault.
It's not Ed's fault.
Let me get a t-shirt.
All right. All right. So anyway, here's where I started. Is Mike sent me these pictures and of this badge and some others. Let's see if I can pull this other folder up. All right, and so he had that badge, and then he had this badge, which said, "Hey, can you turn these into? Can you CNC these?"
We're still seeing the first one. Are you showing a second one?
Yeah, I'm showing a second one. Can you see this
Just
one?
so you know, Rob, it stays focused on a single application. If you bring up a second instance, it doesn't toggle. You have to unshare and then share again if you're moving between.
Okay, stop share and then reshare.
Correct. Choose the new window. Yeah.
All right. I'm not used to working in this single screen stuff. I usually just drag stuff on and it shows up.
There you go.
Okay, so this is the second badge. And so he said, hey, can you turn these in? And I said, let me go to YouTube and see what it tells me. So, so then what I did was, if I go down like this, what do you see now?
Same badge.
Same badge.
All right.
Badge.
Okay, I hit stop share. So I said, let me go see what I could do. And I started trying to carve some different badges. And so I went to, oh, I got to pull it up first now that I just can't. It just won't go to a folder and let me keep popping things up, will it?
Well, it
no,
depends,
One of the
but if-
options is the full
depends on
desktop.
how you do it. If you share your entire screen,
Right.
yes. If you share an app, no.
Right.
How do I share an entire screen?
Yeah.
One of your options in the pick menu in the share screen will be your whole desktop. And so we can just see everything.
That's what I need to share. So optimize sheet curve. So it's one of the options here.
I believe so, yes. Dan, is that what you understand?
Yeah.
If you have an app that you can bring up where you can use file open and you can just move and select your different images from that single app.
Well,
but
like
when-
the photo app should do that, shouldn't it?
If you're moving along within the app, yeah.
Shoot, it's not. Oh, see all photos. Maybe that'll do it. I don't know.
yeah, right now we're looking at Windows Explorer, I believe.
Yep.
You're looking at Windows. Okay, so yeah, this working on this other computer. All right. So anyway, so he sent me those two badges. This may not go as smoothly as I'd hoped because I can't figure out how to share the dang screen right. I'm technically challenged here because I really need to just share it so that I can flip through the pictures. But
Take your time.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
so this is the board he's working on to keep it in mind. So can you see that board?
Yes.
All right, and you see the banner up on top?
Yes.
So that's what I'm working on today, or trying to get done today. We'll see how I do because it's 8 feet long and I got a 3-foot CNC. So I have to tile it, which I've watched lots of videos on. I talked with Ian about it last night. Ian helped me out. So we'll see how it works out. I'm trying to make a little jig to make it easier on my CNC. And Mike was originally, he laser cut each of those letters and he was going to glue them on one by one and try to arrange it so that it worked. And after he did that for a while, he said, well, could you really try to do that CNC thing we were talking about? So I'm going to try. And then the badge you saw, can you see my arrow? Is this badge here or
Right.
something similar? He was going to mount up here. So this is the board he's trying to finish up. And then,
Hey, Rob, before you
Yeah.
go on, can I just give a little bit of background?
yes, sir.
This is for the Western Division Police Department, which is down near Morena Avenue and on the San Diego River, across from the YMCA. They had a board up there since 1965, and it really looked kind of tired. They had a renovation done in the lobby, and Mike approached them about what he could do as an outreach program from the San Diego Fine Woodworkers to help them make some changes that were woodworking oriented. That board that had been up there since 1965 was basically a sheet of plywood with a few frames put on it. It didn't look great, and the idea was to take it to the next level. So the only other point I want to make is what you're looking at there, that is a full sheet of ply making up the outer boundaries of that. So that's a 4x8 thing. That's why what Rob is making is significant in size because it needs to actually occupy a significant spot on that really large board. And if you've got a crown across the top there that says Western Division San Diego Police Force, and he wants to do that in a CNC, you can see he's, as is always the case with Rob, he's finding challenges to learn from, and then he just takes it to the next level when it comes to milling. So I'm hoping personally that when you figure out how you do that, you'll also tell us how you pulled that off with indexing or whatever it is. That's
Okay,
all. Thanks.
sounds good. So, so you saw the pictures of the badges, and let's go open up this Aspire or VCarve and see if it'll allow me to share that app screen. Let's see if I can find it. I think it's right here. So can you see my Aspire screen here?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So to give you an idea, what you have to do with this is the first time I did it, I tried to do a model. And so there's a couple ways you can do a model, but this model is so detailed and complicated, it kind of turns into a mess. But let me show you kind of what it looks like. It doesn't take that long to just show you this. So if you go to the modeling feature, and this is in VCarve, by the way, also, not just Aspire, it has this feature. You can go in here and you can say, right here, import a bitmap, create a component from a selected or a bitmap. So you open that up and you say, okay, what do you want to pull in? And so we'll just say, in this case, I wanted to pull in, can you see the badges that are showing up on my screen?
Yes.
All right. So I'm looking for it's hidden. There we are. So the first one I pulled in was this one right here. That was that big badge. Let me take the 2D view and squish this down a little bit. So you see it pulled in a bitmap. And then for those of you that are familiar with VCarve or Aspire, they're the same thing. You can see that bitmap came in. I didn't do anything to it, and it pulled in a model.
Wow.
Yeah, it's called a bump map.
Yeah.
I believe.
Is
Yeah.
that what it's called? Anyway,
Uh,
so it pulled in this model, which then, as you can see, overall is the badge.
Yep.
So what that does is then you can take that badge. I don't know why it's only got a quarter of it. I probably need to reduce it to the size to fit on the component, but you got the idea. I don't want to take a lot of your time. Is it pulls it in and actually converts it, and then you can go ahead and put tool paths over here and start to manipulate. I don't know what. Let me see if I can shrink this here. You can start to then manipulate the tools. You know, you can start putting in your carving tools with your finishing tool and all that. We can get into that some other time. So the idea was to try to do that, and the challenge with that was, as I stop sharing, as I did that, the first version, I was actually surprised how well it turned out, but I couldn't seem to repeat it. So share screen. Share screen. Let's see. So this is, can you see this model?
Yes.
Yes.
So I did a draft one. I had some old cherry that actually the shop had given me for some project. And you can see it had a crack in it. I hadn't even realized the crack went all the way through. But when I carved it, it's not very clean, but you can start to make it out. And I'm starting to feel enthralled, you know, about potential here. And then I turned around and I turned that over to Mike, and Mike actually cleaned it up with some sanding. Let's see if I can get that picture come up. So you can see he actually sanded it up, and I don't know what you can see on your screen, how well you can see it.
Yeah, we can see it.
But he sanded it up and then painted it with some gold paint. And so he was pretty happy with that, and even thought the crack gave it character. So I continued to then try to figure out what to do, but my future versions, for what it's worth, didn't quite turn out as even as clear as that one. As I transitioned to the other badge, she wanted a different badge actually. And so let me share this screen. So this is what, can you see it now?
Give it a second.
What can you see?
Well, it's loading.
It says that you started screen sharing, but nothing has resolved. There we go. Okay, now we can see it.
All right, you can see how unclear this is, right? This is really kind of not very good at all. It's a maple. It was a different, it wasn't cherry, it was maple, but it didn't turn out good. And it turned out that a lot of it had to do with going back, and I'll go back into.
I'm sorry, Rob, this is from a different graphic, right?
Yeah, this is from a different badge.
Okay.
And I thought it'd be a simpler badge. This is from, so if you see this badge, can you see this badge right here? My
Yes.
arrows pointing to it.
Yes.
So that's basically from that badge. And so what I found out is as you pull,
Rob, did the previous one have more grayscale or more color to it?
It was-
And that
the
what gave it
previous-
the texture?
well, the previous one was a color picture,
Okay.
and I had color and black and white of both versions, to be honest. And I just thought the black and white would transfer better. And it really, I really can't tell yet which works better. But I'm gonna go ahead and delete this thing. And so that's why it was. You saw how much bigger it was than the component. That's why I was only getting a quarter of it. So anyway, long story short was the carving didn't work real well. So then the modeling, just because you have this ball nose bit, it's really small and it wants to take 30 hours to carve if you really want it clear. And I knew we didn't have that kind of time. I didn't have that kind of time. So I went to a different method. And in 2D view, I went to drawing. And then what I did was I imported, if you see this as import bitmap.
Yeah.
So first thing I had to do was take those badges. Can you see the badges at all?
Yep.
Okay. So the first thing I had to do is take these badges into a software program, Photoshop or something else. I used a program just because I wasn't really familiar with them, called Affinity. And I had to go in and I had to clean this thing up to take a lot of the garbage that was around it, because it had feet and other thing around it on the pictures Mike sent me. So I cleaned up, and once you have this bitmap in, then what you can do is you can come over to this. You see this option says fit vectors to selected bitmap. Can you see that?
Yes.
Somebody's typing like crazy, so that's all I'm hearing.
I think it's actually a plastic bag.
Sorry.
Okay. So anyway, so I click on that, and then what it does is it takes and it allows you to bring in a bitmap. So I'm just gonna preview, apply, and I'm not really gonna work with it right now. I'm just gonna show you it. But basically, it allows you to bring in the bitmap. You can turn off the bitmap, and then what you got are all these vectors. And then I simply went to VCarve it, and the results turned out much better. But I found out that the vectors don't all transfer clean. You can see there's a lot of noise. So I had to spend hours and hours learning how to go edit each of these vectors. And if you're not familiar with that, we won't go into right now, but let me just do it real quick. So I put it in, I have to first ungroup them all because they come in as a group, I just realized. So when you want unable to, okay, do you want to ungroup the selected objects? Yes. All right, so now once you're there, you've ungrouped them, you come in and you got it in vector mode, and you just have to, you see all of these little vectors. Can you see that on the screen?
Yep.
You just go
Yep.
through and I'm deleting them all, right? And then I would have to break a vector down here and connect it, you know, different things, just to clean it up so it would come across in a thing. But it didn't turn out too bad. So I did that, and the result of that was, let's see if I can pull up, that was where we are now is, oh, I'm in the wrong place. So an example of that would be, I'm looking for the picture. Here we are.
Rob, as you're doing that, can you just confirm, it sounded as though once you vectorized it, you just did a VCarve of the result. And
Correct.
and that just sounds like there would be a lot of places where that would work beautifully. Like for instance, inside of the police, all those letters would probably look like beautiful VCarves. But you know, VCarve, it's sort of like skips objects. So this is inside of that, is inside of another, is inside of another, and it will do alternate ones. And
Yep.
how did you just get lucky that you had the right nested vectors and it all turned out well, or did you have to actually like add a vector around the outside to get the result that you wanted or something?
Yeah,
like
it's funny you should say that. I thought I was going to get tricky and clean it up better, and I would make it worse. And then I'd have to figure out what I did, just what you were saying.
Yeah.
And so where I wanted the things to stick out, all of a sudden they were carved in.
Yes.
And so then on one of the badges that had, let me show you what, see if, I'm trying to share a screen here. It's acting slow. Kind of locked up here, just a second. All right, get back over here and see if it'll let me share it again. All right. All right, so now this is what the final versions, now I've cut them out since then, and I've got a picture of that, but I don't know that we need to show that. Oh, look at that.
Really nice.
So let me blow it up a little bit. So you can kind of see that there's a significant difference in the quality now.
What is the difference between the two?
Well, that's what I was going to get at is, one is they're VCarved, it's not modeled, number one. Number two, remember, because I don't have to model it, it only takes a couple hours to carve these now that they're VCarved instead of modeled. And what you were getting at, Travis, it takes a lot of experiment, not only with the vector sizes and making sure you don't add extra vectors. So one of the things I did was on the vector I was using, there's an extra line here.
Yeah.
And I deleted it. Next thing I know, everything that was up went down.
Yes.
And everything that was down went down further or up. And it was a mess.
Yes.
Didn't look right at all. So I had to put that back in. There were other examples like that. Then I had to experiment with the right size V bit. So I thought, well, if I really want this knife, I'll go with a V45 because it has a nice crisp angle. And then I found that it actually destroyed some of the other things because it went too deep to try to make it wider. So then I set the flat depth less. And then I went to a V90. Well, V90 wasn't quite right. Well, I so happened to have a V60. So I tried a V60. It's like the mama bear, papa bear. It was just right. So, and then I played with the start depth and the bottom depth. And I'm not sure I got it perfect, but I got it to where it's passable and looks pretty nice. And then, so that was something that I did. And then what I did was I started experimenting. Can you see this? Can you see black and gold and stuff on here?
Not yet. All we see is the old one on the mill bed.
All right. So we're going to, how come it won't, it doesn't say stop. It just says, okay, share. Let's go to this one. So then I said, well, you know, it'd be really cool if I could really make some contrasting colors. Yeah. So I painted a piece of pine that I had in gold. You can see the gold underneath here, I think maybe. And then I covered it with but I didn't let it sit very long. I let it sit like 4 hours. I covered it with Aura mask, somebody was talking about. And then I spray painted black. Well, I didn't spray paint black. I carved it. Then I spray painted it black. That's what you see is the black over the Aura mask here that looks kind of gray. It's because it's over the blue Aura mask. And then I started doing the taking the Aura gel off or Aura mask off. And
that was done in like 5 minutes, right?
No, that took hours. It was miserable. So I had put a little video together, but I'm not going to torture you with that. So basically, after the carving, this is what it looked like under the Aura mask. Can you see this? Can you see that?
Yes, it's beautiful.
So that's what it looked like with the Aura mask still on it. And there's a couple spots I'll point out. You see this blackish spot up here?
Yeah.
My arrow is up on the wing. Well, that was actually a knot, and so the paint didn't really collect. And then all these little spots in here, when you start peeling it off with a little picker, and then on these little wings, there's a tendency, especially since I didn't let the gold sit for like a day or something like that, or put a couple, 3 coats on it. It was pretty thin. So the problem is when I started picking it off, I got little specks here and there. And so I was a little disappointed in how that part turned out. And so, but in the end, maybe I can hold it up and you'll see it. My daughter started trying to paint. My daughter started trying to paint some of the gold with take the spray paint, put it in the lid, and then paint it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the matchup didn't really go because it has a fleck in it, so that was disappointing. Plus, it's hard. It didn't want to stick as well. So I think next time what I'll do is I'll either spray many more coats and let it sit for a day or two. Just anybody who wants to try this, you can't do it real fresh as fast as I did. Or I think might be better is to use a can paint and paint it on, because then when you try to touch it up, you're using the same paint the way it was used to begin with a brush or a roller. So here's what it looks like now. Let's see if you guys can see it.
Oh yeah, we can see that. Looks great.
Fantastic.
So that's what you got. Now there's a bunch of little speckles in here and stuff, and we're gonna try to clean it up. But when I showed it to Mike, he said, "Quit whining and give me the badge." So he said it looked fine to him. So I'll go ahead and bring it down when I bring down the banner of that. And then I've got the other badges I have. I've got 5 other badges that I've cut out of the curly maple. It was a crying shame to carve that curly maple he gave me, because you can't see the curl in it once you do that.
Oh yeah.
But it was beautiful. But anyway, there's 5 of them. 4 of them are about this size. A couple that larger, and then a couple just a tiny bit smaller, so they would fit in the maple.
Fantastic.
And you saw what the maple looked like. That was what I showed you with the 2 badges together.
How many have you made total in this prototyping process?
In the prototyping process, I made about 4 of them, and then I actually made 6, I think, that he's going to keep.
Wow.
Now he's asked me for another one of the badges. Let's see here.
The beauty is once you've figured it out, though, cranking it out is a piece of cake.
Other than it takes hours to carve, still takes a couple hours to get a good carve.
Agree.
So yeah, but once you get it out, you just got to keep playing with it. Is the thing. And so right now, what I'm working on is I'm working on the banner. So I'll show you kind of what that looks like.
This is the banner across the top front?
Yeah, across the top.
Just out of curiosity, do you know if he's found anybody to help him with the LEDs, the lighting?
I do not.
Okay.
Do not. I'm going to, if everything goes right and I get done, I'm taking this to him this afternoon. That's the idea. If not, I'll have to do it tomorrow. But
I'm going over to help him on Monday.
Great. Thank you.
So,
Thank you, Paul.
So let's see here, this share thing here. Let me share my screen one more time. And I'm going to share.
I think in just these last 20 minutes, you've become the SDFWA how to share a screen expert.
I'm telling you, it's frustrating. On one screen, I'm used to having 3 screens. So you can see what I'm doing here right now.
Oh yeah.
Can you see that?
Yep.
Western Division Police Department. So this is basically 9 1/4 inches wide. Now it's going sideways because of my machine with the Y, right? I've got to tile it out.
Right.
So then I'll go and I'll tile this out. And for those of you that are familiar with that, you basically go into your toolpath section over here, and you pick the tiling toolpath, and you say, hey, you want to tile it, and I say, since I know it's 9 feet, I got to feed through the Y direction. I know it's 30 inches of tile, so I do that, and next thing you know, I don't know how well you can see it. Let's see if I can blow this screen up a little bit.
Could you zoom in? Yeah.
Let's see if I can get it a little more.
By the way, was that going to be police force or police department?
Just said police department is what he had on his text.
Because on the sample image, it was police force.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it said police department, but I will go back and check that since you
Yeah,
asked the
okay.
question.
Just doing a quick spell check. Okay.
No, that's cool. He actually sent me the information on the on a DXF file or whatever you want to call it that he typed up.
Got it.
So, but it's worth me asking him too to make sure that wasn't something he did. So anyway, you can see it. So you see these yellow lines here?
Yeah.
That's where this thing is tiling it. So it will actually tile it, and then you put in these alignment holes, which is what I was working on with Ian last night on how to get them right. And you'll drill these in so that as you move the tile, it moves at a specific 30 inches so that your break point is just perfect. At least that's the concept. And
So
what they show.
they're basically registration marks in the form of pins that are set into your bed, and then you move the material to the next location.
I actually drill through the piece that I'm cutting and the bed both so that they line up perfectly. And so you can do it a couple different ways. One, of course, is Ian helped me. He's willing to doing a half of index so we don't take as much of the material. Or you could, if you have enough material, you can drill it right, say an inch in, and you just move it to move it. But the key is to move it the same distance each time.
But that's
what was boggling my mind a little bit. I've done a lot of two-sided with the cheese boards and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
But I hadn't done tiling, and although they're the same, they're different. So
that has to be in the waste material. So you're going to cut the final sign from within the boundaries of those registration pins, right?
Yeah, I could do. I plan on doing that, or I can just turn it over to Mike and let him deal with it.
Right. No, agreed.
No, yeah, that would be the plan. I've got all the tools here with saws and everything.
And did you just basically apply this text to a path? You created a line that was the right shape you wanted, and then you put the text on that line?
Yeah, so what I did real quickly is, let me just do a real quick new component because it's so easy to demonstrate. So I came in here and I typed police department, let's say. You can see my screen, right?
Yep.
Okay, so this is really a cool feature. So I've got my text in here. I hit close, and then I'm gonna, just for giggles, I'm gonna put an arc in here. So I'm gonna say I want my text to be on an arc that looks like that, which is similar to what I have, right?
Yep.
All right, so now once you've got your arc, you simply take your text and you go over here to, it says text on an arc. Can you see where I'm pointing at? You click on that, and so you click on the text, then you shift and click on the arc, and you can either put it above the curve, on the curve, under the curve, whatever you want. And if it's too big, it'll actually say, text is too big to fit on the curve. Do you want it to fit on the curve and shrink it? You say, sure. And you go ahead and do it. Then if your spacing's not right, you can mess with your spacing over here and all that other stuff.
Very nice.
Once you have that arc, whatever you set up, it works out really good. You can actually come in here so you don't have an extra graphic in there, and you can delete that arc and it stays there.
Yeah, that's excellent.
All right.
Hey, Rob, before we
Any
move on,
questions?
could you go back to VCarve for just, I mean, Aspire for just a second? I wanted to confirm something here. Could you show us the icon you used to do what I think Doug called the bump mat? I was trying to compare it to the VCarve and see whether that icon was there or not.
Well, I'm not sure, but I think it is. Let me open up VCarve.
Yeah, I've got it open if you just want to show the icon.
If I can, oh, okay. You just want me to show the icon?
Yeah.
All right.
Because while VCarve does allow for some 3D, it's really minimal, almost as a tease, so that people go spend the money on Aspire.
Well, I was gonna pull up VCarve to make sure I see it, but it looks like two eagles.
Two eagles. Okay,
Unfortunately,
yeah,
I can't make
don't
that
see
screen.
We only have 6 icons in VCarve in the 3D
Let
model
me.
tools. That said,
I'm gonna pull up VCarve and I'll see if I see it, and I'll tell you right where I see it on my screen because I have both.
that said, folks, the solution that he had, which was to trace the bitmap, everything that he did for the final solution is available in VCarve. So
Yes.
that's something, you know, we can confirm right here. Maybe we'll confirm the others available too, but do you see it there, Rob?
I'm going over there right now.
Okay.
I do not. No, I don't see it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I think that they just tease us in VCarve with 3D. They don't give us a whole lot more than one. You can actually only import one 3D model into VCarve before you hit a limit. So it's there just to give you a taste of what's possible. Also, because you talked about registration marks and moving a larger piece through, and because we did start off earlier talking about the auteur, Doug made the point in a laser SIG the other day that those of us who own the auteurs can use a feature now inside of Lightburn called print and cut. And it does the same sort of thing where you could move the laser from place to place over a larger piece of stock, and you could basically extend the cutting range to something much larger. And you do that through registration marks and some aligning, but it works out really well. And so your auteur may be limited to a 6x6 inch range in its movement, but because of this print and cut feature, you can now actually etch over much larger areas, which, I mean, that's pretty liberating. And with that insight, I just wanted to pass that along.
Yeah, so the example that's good, Travis, to know that. I'll have to jump back to that. The example I was giving is, here's the jig I'm building. So you can see I've got an MDF, because it's 8 feet piece of board, right? So this is like 60 inches. So it gives me more stabilization than just the 3 feet. And what I'm doing is I'm now milling this MDF piece so that I have a registration guide right here. In other words, it's gonna be 1/4 inch, so it's like a ruler. And so it'll be square. And I'll put my other board on top of this board. So I'm now making a pocket that's a 1/4 inch deep. And I'm putting my registration marks so that everything stays aligned for 60 inches. Then I will have played with the index marks to make sure they're working right. And then I'll just transfer all that over to the actual project, and it will sit on here.
But correct me if I'm wrong, but you will therefore not have to do anything with registration marks on your cut piece. It's all on this jig. And secondly, once you've got this jig figured out and the positioning on the bed, you could use this over and over again for future jobs if you wanted to. Is that correct?
That's my thought.
Okay.
Now I am cheating slightly, because what I'm doing is I'm only making the pocket the same size as the board. So I'm not going all the way across, because I want to kind of have extra control on wiggle back and forth to make sure everything's locked into place.
Yeah. How deep is the recess?
1/4 inch.
Okay. What an amazing learning curve you've been going on, Rob. That's amazing.
It's been interesting.
Yeah.
When you're tiling text on a path, have you ever encountered where you need to change the spacing so that you don't have a cut in the middle of a letter, and try and put the, I guess, the separation between text so that it doesn't fall in a letter, just for cleanliness of the letters when you're doing the engraving or the milling?
Well, that's a good question. This is the first time I've ever done it, so I've never experimented with that. That was one thing that Ian brought up, is in his experience, he's done tiling. It's always, you're more secure in not having to carve across it. Now, the people that I watched on YouTube say it's not a problem. Ian laughed and said, well, maybe. That's not what he's experienced necessarily.
Okay.
So there's two things you do. Well, there's multiple things you can do. One is you set the spacing of your tiles, which was what Ian was trying to work with me on last night. So it's between letters, so that you don't have it. The other one would be the way that you talked about it, which is to space the letters themselves versus the registration marks. And another way to do it is cross your fingers and hope for the best. And just, it does a thing there where you can take in, you can see this, if you can you still see, you can't see my screen, but there's on the tiling path, there's an overlap feature, which allows you to go back as much as you want, 0.25 inches or a half inch, and recarve where you just did, so that as it starts into the new, if there's any break, it's not as noticeable.
Oh, I did not know about that feature. All right, thanks.
Was that
so let me show you. Let me show you that real quick. It's real easy to see. So can you see that? Can you guys see my screen now?
Yes.
So can you see this tile path manager?
Yes.
Look down here, it says tile overlap. So if I put in 0.25 inches, it'll go back 0.25 inches on stuff that it already carved.
So that's an adjustment to correct for something you see that is visually off. You can move it plus or minus a little, bump.
Is it a correction or just a blurring?
Well, it just basically recarves. And if you look at the tiling manager, let me switch to 2D view. What you see is, though, I put that in there and I update the tiles. Then when you come over here, you can see your space right here. It's 0.25 inches. It moved it back 0.25 inches.
Yeah,
so
blurring is a good term. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you previously carved that, then all it's going to do by recarving is essentially like blurring in Photo Illustrator or whatever.
Probably.
It's just gonna make the segue from one to the next a little less obvious.
Yeah, I think that's probably right.
Yeah, I would think there wouldn't be. It's if your registration pins are loose or your material's loose on the registration pins, that's the only place you're ever going to see this type of transition. But I would also think maybe that's applicable because your round bit, your end mill is coming up. If it stops right on a line, there might be a little bit of a cut, like a grain fuzz or something at that point. If you started at the exact same point going to continue, you might just end up with that fuzz or that grain not cutting off. But if you just go through it, if you make the next one start a little bit back and cut through it, it cleans it up. I wouldn't think that it would, blur anything. I think it's really a nice cleaning of it.
Guys, I don't know if you guys appreciated the extent of Joe's yawn just now, but man, did he come away from that yawn feeling good. That was a massive yawn. Sorry, Rob.
All right.
Ahead.
No, I've taken up enough time. Honestly, with the thing that I'm doing, it's simple text, so you're not going to notice much of anything. If you were doing something that was detailed, I'd be more worried about it. I'm done.
Well, thanks so much,
incredible.
Rob. Really appreciate that. That's some great work. It's good to be able to see it in person like this. And we hope to see pictures when it gets all put together and mounted too, the final the final project. So that's
I'm sure Mike will take him. He's been doing a lot of work. He's got a lot of people helping him out, and so it's definitely a team sport. I really appreciate Mike inviting me to help. Definitely hurt my head again. So you guys tend to do that.
Thanks for doing that, Rob.
All right.
okay.
You know what's kind of fun? I'm in at least 3 different SIGs here: laser cutting, Fusion 360,
Yep.
and this one. And just within the last, say, 2 weeks, this thing about registration marks have come up in all 3 SIGs, with Lightburn adding a feature that makes it really simple to do this type of registration mark with laser cutting, and even manipulating the design so that you can just point on the two things in your on your bed to calibrate the image to the reality of, you know, if you're cutting, which was really cool. And then I ran across a cool video of a CNC laser cutting slicer that demoed 2-sided, you know, milling with a recently added feature of those pins, those registration pins. And then here's Rob hitting it on that. It's kind of funny, just within the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I've used it quite a bit for 2-sided. I've done quite a bit of 2-sided stuff, but it's similar but different. I had to wrap my head around making it longer versus flipping it over.
Okay. Again, thanks. And thanks to everybody for joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording here in just a moment, and then we will talk about if anybody wants to say anything else.